Okay. Well, I think our goals for this meeting, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, are basically to give you guys an update on where we are, and then more importantly, to get a sense of next steps. I know that Bob's goal was very much to have this be an educator / student driven process. And so, yeah, I want to, like I say, I'll start by telling you where we are, and then we can talk a little bit about that. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
Okay, great. I am gonna do a little bit of presentation because I feel like I need to do that in order to show folks where we are. Maybe we should just do a quick round of introductions, actually. And I'm sorry I didn't start with that to begin with. Why don't we do that first? So I'll just mention that I'm John Peterson. I'm the director of the Environmental Dashboard Project, and also the president of Community Hub, a company that makes the software that makes dashboards possible for people. And maybe we'll do a popcorn here. And I'm actually going to pass things off to Megan Swing, who's our very newest employee, who's so new that she hasn't actually started yet until September, but she wanted to be here for this conversation. Megan, you go.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Megan Swing. I'm going to be the assistant project manager on the environmental dashboard. I'm really excited to get involved in this. Do you want me to give a little bit of like my background or anything, or is that good?
One sentence background.
I went to Allegheny College. I'm originally from upstate New York, and then I got my master's in mass comm, and I'm excited to be back in the same time zone and back working on environmental stuff. So really excited to be here.
You know, I'll do the pass off. Maddie, you're next, and then you can do popcorn.
Hello, everyone. I'm Maddie Faubert, and I work for Community Hub, basically doing graphic design and story development. And I'll pass things to Melissa.
I will unmute. I am Melissa Lodge. I'm Director of Elementary Curriculum in grades 4 through 8.
I'll jump in. I'm Kay Waite. I'm a teacher on special assignment for TPS, and I am a district instructional planner. There's my friend Bob. He's here.
I'm on a conference call for the next few minutes.
Elizabeth.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm Elizabeth Buckholtz. I'm a district-wide science instructional coach with Toledo Public Schools.
Popcorn Bob.
Hello, everyone. Bob Mendenhall, Business Division, TPS.
I'll jump in. This is Russ Ely. I am formerly of one of TPS's suppliers in the world of helping run buildings, mechanical stuff and all of that. I am retired from that, but I'm helping as a marketing individual with Community Hub.
I'm Julie Campbell. I'm with Toledo Public Schools. I'm a science district instructional coach.
I'm Cindy Medansky. I'm an instructional coach at Hawkins STEM.
I think that's the group, except for Mr. Peterson.
Yes, no, I introduced myself, so I think we're good on that. So like I say, I want to do a brief presentation, and then as soon as possible get ourselves to discussion. So pardon me if I move pretty quickly. As I think most of you know, I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Can you guys see my screen now? It's loading.
Perfect.
As most of you, I think, are aware, we worked very closely with TPS, with Bob, with Julie, with Elizabeth, with other folks on an effort to utilize a technology that our precursor company that I was involved in, Lucid, developed to meter buildings and then integrate that within education back in 2017, 2018. It's hard to count the number of workshops we did because we had one day when I think we did 4 or 5 workshops in a row, but we did at least 7, 8, 9 workshops with teachers. We had sort of a deep level of engagement in the schools. And unfortunately, for reasons that I won't go into, but didn't have anything to do with me or the teachers involved, that TPS didn't renew the contract that provided that software. And so that whole system sort of collapsed. So what we're talking about doing now is a bit of a reboot. And as I mentioned, I know Bob wants to start like from sort of ground up with a few buildings, and we'll talk about that as we go forward with a new suite of technology that I've been developing with colleagues to sort of replace that. And so what I'm hoping to talk about today is what we can do, what we've already done, and then where should we go from here, which I want to be sort of the bulk of our discussion right now. So just to give you a little bit of context about who we are now, which is different from who we were when we were working there before, Community Hub is a new company that is entirely under my control and is more explicitly designed for educational and community context. So a little bit different from Lucid, which is the previous company. We have a team that is actually larger than what I'm showing here, but it has at this point 4 full-time software engineers working on developing a replacement software, which we hope to be both, which we intend to be much better for education than Lucid software, and much less expensive, more affordable for schools. But lots of team members here. We operate on a premise that I hope will connect with many of you, which is that school buildings and communities are not just places in which learning occurs, but they can be fundamental components of a curriculum. They can really be part of our laboratory, of the buildings themselves. And so from the outset, before and now, our goal is to use real-time data on building performance to provide authentic learning experiences that develop STEM skills and knowledge, with an emphasis on, a more sustainable future in an era of climate change, climate vulnerabilities. How can we use our facilities to really educate the next generation for the 21st century skills that they're going to need to make this world a better place and a more resilient place. What is the ideal STEM experience? From my experience as someone who's been teaching STEM for 35 years now, mostly at the college level, but originally in elementary school and high school. Those were my first teaching experiences. The ideal STEM experience involves research and discovery, engaging kids in asking questions for which answers are not already known, and then providing them with the tools where they can actually answer those questions. To me, that's sort of the ideal and fundamental component of teaching students STEM. It is problem solving. It's about applying information to build knowledge and develop skills. It's also, for me, very much about storytelling. How do we use data collection, analysis and visualization combined with narrative to explain how the world works and how it can be improved? So those are sort of central to our goals, is you provide all that, and ideally what you're providing is empowerment to students so that they can take this world and make it a better world. Don't want to get into too much about history, but as I say, we started a company, Lucid, in 2004, and Community Hub is a company we started in 2018, and that's the one we're working with now. Community Hub has a technology called Data Hub that can gather data from lots of different sources. We have tapped into the data on Toledo Public Schools with the help of Palmer Energy. And we can provide that in a variety of different contexts, building dashboard, hub analytics. These are all tools that can be used in the classroom for that deep STEM learning. We also access data from publicly accessible data sources, buoys installed in the Great Lakes municipal data, and we can combine that with data on buildings. And then, as I mentioned, social data, storytelling data is also kind of key to what we do. Really, at its heart, what we're trying to do is to develop student and community-centered data exploration and communication technology that provides connective tissue between students and between key organizations in the natural world that they inhabit. That's kind of the center of what we're trying to do. There are a variety of different content applications we have for accomplishing that, and I'll say a little bit more about many of these. A lot of our work is within whole communities, so we will do an installation in a school, but it's part of a larger installation that's within a whole community. So some of these components are much more focused on that larger community. But building dashboard, meters and displays, resource use within individual buildings, citywide dashboard does that at a citywide level. Community Voices shares the actions that people are taking to build a more resilient community. We do have a neighborhood calendar and jobs board, which probably not so relevant to this, but could be relevant. We have a lot of story content that's sort of central to what we've been doing. For instance, we developed and maintain an exhibit at Great Lakes Science Center that focuses on air quality, water quality, in this case in the Cleveland region. And then we've got a whole suite of interactive STEM content, which I'll say a little bit more about. Some of you who've experienced our technology before know that we like to combine data with what we call empathetic characters that help students to better understand what does the data mean, what's good, what's bad. So this is an example of time series with an empathetic character who's responding to current electricity use. This happens to be in a residence hall in Oberlin College with typical use. So the squirrel's happy when use is lower than it normally is at this time of day. And it's sad when it's higher. And we've actually done quite a bit of research to show that this really does change the way kids in particular think about data. Most people don't really know where their resources come from. They live in communities. They don't know where their water comes from. They don't know where their electricity comes from. They don't understand how the decisions that they make within their schools or within their workplace connect with these larger resource flows. And so our goal is very much to help students in the context of STEM learning better understand where their resources are coming from. That's partly what this citywide dashboard display is about, is translating that sort of abstraction of resource flows into something a little bit more concrete, so people can see where their water comes from, where their electricity comes from, how much they're using right now. This happens to be the Oberlin citywide dashboard. We could easily build one of these for the Toledo Public School System campus or for Toledo as a community as a whole. Here's an example of another dashboard we created for the city of Cleveland that's functioning right now in the Great Lakes Science Center exhibit. Won't say too much about Community Voices because I think that's probably not a place we'll be going first with this, but again, it features different categories of content. It's designed to help people understand how the decisions they're making in their daily lives are affecting resource flows. It's got these different sections focused on different components of community engagement. Anyway, didn't want to say too much about that. I will say nothing about the calendar, actually. So we have various implementations in the Northeast Ohio region. Again, we're just sort of rebooting things in Toledo Public Schools now. We would be happy to build digital signage, but there's lots of components to the educational content that we hope to work with you to develop. Lots of opportunities for different kinds of engagement, whether it's digital signage within the halls, whether it's sort of deep dives into data within a classroom context. Lots of data visualization is possible, or whether it's in facilitating events. We've been running Eco-Olympics events where schools compete to reduce electricity and water use for many years in many different contexts going way back. So those are all possible. These are just some different contexts. As you can see, our team and kids interacting with dashboards in various installations. One of the things we've been working hard on in the last several years, probably since we last engaged with TPS, is interactive digital signage. So this is digital sign. It features all of the content within Environmental Dashboard. It's got a Google Slide integration, but it has a phone app controller, so you can scan a little barcode and control the content on those screens. Instantly. Anyone can scan a little barcode. Usually we have the barcode below the screens. It's on the screens as well. And once you scan that, it's actually a QR code. I say barcode, I mean QR code. Once you scan that QR code, it instantly opens a controller on your phone, which allows you to then select whatever content you want on the screen. So it's got, the digital signs have a home loop of content, but then if you click on a button, you can choose what particular section of that you're in. So you can basically select what you want. It queues people up. So if several people are trying to use it at the same time, it'll give one person access for a while, and then it'll time them out and give the next person access. We also have content that gets embedded in organizational websites. So on the left, you're seeing the embedded content in the Oberlin Public School installation. The homepage of the school's website has a little button on the top for dashboard, and you click on that, and then you're within the dashboard, and you can dive into the data within that for the public to access public school data. Lots of different data visualization apps exist. I don't know how much I want to talk about each of these, just to say lots of different ways of allowing our students to explore, develop questions, and then answer those questions with data. As some of you will remember from previous workshops, certainly Elizabeth and Julie, there is a repository of lesson plans. These are still sort of optimized for the Lucid technology, but one of our goals in the next year is to revise all of these and expand them so that they're based on our new Community Hub technology. But many of those same lessons are still totally applicable, and that's all on a public website and accessible. This is just Eco-Olympics events in Oberlin. Competitions. We just rebooted the competition in Oberlin. Actually, we hadn't run it in a few years and ran a big competition last spring, which was very successful and fun. Oh, I'll just show you this. This is a heat map. So this is one way of visualizing data that students can engage with. Each row is a day of the year. Each column is an hour of the day, and the color of each box, which is at 1 hour of one day, is how much electricity. In this case, it could be electricity or water or natural gas, but in this case, it's electricity. How much electricity it's using relative to other times. So dark red means that's when it's using the most electricity, and dark green is when it's using the least electricity. And this is just an example of one of our elementary schools in Oberlin. Before a competition, you can actually see there's a spring break there, which is why for 1 week it's all green. No one's there. but then you can see the competition and how much lower electricity use was during the competition. And then after the competition, you can see still lower than it was before the competition, but does bounce back a little bit. We've done lots of research on this, which I don't think I want to talk about because I wanted to leave as much time as possible to show you what we got and then talk about where we might go. So Bob was kind enough to enlist us in beginning to at least verify that we were capable of accessing data with our new software system, and make that data available for initial ground truthing, assessing whether it's good quality data. We went a little bit further than that. We developed an interface here which does allow you to search by different schools. We actually have data for a lot more schools than this, so we can easily add additional schools to this, but these are the schools that Bob wanted us to add first. So you can see we've got 5 schools metered here. I know one of you is from Chase, so we could take a look at Chase and see what's going on with that. We know this is an old photo. We know that. It's one that we found online for this. But what you're seeing here actually is the empathetic character gauge today. And what you're seeing is the green line is typical use. And then the blue line is how much is being used so far today. You can see the squirrel's very happy today because in general, the building's using a lot less electricity than it has been using at this time of day over the last week. It compares with the last week's data. So you can see the squirrel's very happy. You can see that you can select different time periods. So this is where you can begin to do a deeper dive. As we continue to build out the components, there'll be lots of different ways that data can be expressed here. You can see we're just showing some examples of that. You can do a stacked bar graph of what's being used in different schools. Lots of different things we can do that moving forward. We also put this new button on here for exporting data. You can click export and it'll download at whatever time scale you're looking at if you want to do some analysis in a spreadsheet instead of using our tools. But that's kind of what we've developed so far for this. I'll show you just one other example, and then I'll shut up and we can have a discussion. But I just wanted to show you this is obviously not TPS. This is University of Washington, and I wanted to give you an example of web embedded content. So this is University of Washington contracted with us to develop a dashboard which was principally based on digital signage. So they have this installed in 6 different buildings. Each building has different content on it. But this is an example of the kinds of websites we can build right now. This is actually over on the right here is the phone app controller that you would open if you scanned a barcode. But we embedded this in the website. So in their case, they've got a climate action plan. So if you click on the climate action plan, it's going to tell you about what their sustainability plan is here. If you wanted to look on data on particular buildings, you could click on this button. I just wanted to show you an example of some of the ways that we're now able to integrate this on the web as well. So yeah, just wanted to give an example of that, show you what we got for Chase. And I think I'll go ahead and stop sharing then, because I didn't want to take too long with this presentation. I just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page in terms of where we are right now. And then we can turn towards thinking about where we go next. So let me actually, if I can find my controls, let me stop sharing. And Bob, do you want to add anything before we open this up to discussion?
No, the only thing I would say is to the folks on the call here, I think we've tried numerous times before to get this project underway to make our buildings a living, breathing set of data that can be used in terms of various projects and data collection around the building, with some success and some failures. What I'm really hoping to do, if the educators on the call are committed to using the product and using it in their schools, I'd be willing to financially support it ongoing, to keep making the data flow and to make it useful and to make it reliable. But that's really where I'm at in the process now, and so that's why you guys are on the call here today to hear a little bit more from John, and I'd like to hear a little bit about your level of commitment and where we're at, and not necessarily do I need to have those answers on the call today, but I'd like for you guys to begin having some discussions internally in your groups of is this viable to move forward, and how does it move forward, and what do you need from me to be successful moving it forward.
And Bob, just question, are you talking district wide would be the interest here, or start in certain buildings and grow?
My goal, Kay, is to start within the STEM buildings and grow from there. And we may, to be quite honest with you, never get much further than the STEM buildings. That's going to be based on participation, based on level of interest, based on level of engagement. But I'd like to start with the STEM buildings. When we start talking about the culture of the building being, STEM, I think this talks to that in terms of an application and renewal about how the building is, the physical structure itself is a living, breathing organism of that STEM culture.
Thanks. So my question is, and I noticed that this presentation is being recorded. We are missing some of our STEM coaches on here today. So I was wondering if it would be, if possible for us to have a copy of the recording that we could share out so that we can make sure that they have an opportunity to see and hear the information as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
and I did have John just invite Cindy on the call as well here today, because Cindy used some of this technology previously, was what we would call an early adopter, and she experienced some of the frustration of not getting the data. So we've really worked to make sure Hopkins data is giving good data, and kind of start from there and grow from Hopkins, to be honest with you.
Hey, Bob, I have a question for you. Do we have room for at least one high school? I know we may have an interested party in a high school building that would want to participate. Is that possible?
I'd have to defer back to John, and we'd have to know the school and be able to look at the data and all that, but I don't have a reason why. From my standpoint, I'm not restricted by it, but I'm not sure of the metering and everything that goes on behind the scenes of if we would be able to capture that information.
Thank you.
Most likely we can, Melissa. Palmer Energy has a contract with TPS, and we installed metering long ago for these buildings. So really what we've been doing is sort of rehooking up to that metering. Now we have a pretty high level of confidence in electricity metering. We have less confidence in water metering, and that could potentially be one of the first activities that we engage with. I think that's what we talked about with Bob anyway, was to take the initial set of schools and engage students potentially in some of the data verification necessary to ensure that we are collecting good data. I call it ground truthing, to make sure we've got good data. And that was sort of at least part of the initial concept. I'm happy to go in other directions. But bottom line to your question is, we selected those 5 schools mostly because Bob told us to, but we could easily, assuming the data are there, we're already actually collecting data on all the schools we could get data on. So really, it's just a matter of turning the building on for us. It's simple for us to do. Can't verify data quality on that building instantly, but for most TPS buildings, it's really just turning it on.
Thank you.
Bob. Sorry. Okay. Okay. So are we looking at running like some in-services for the building teachers, or are you going to train? Are you thinking about training the coaches?
Sorry, I was talking with my mute on. I think all that is to be determined by you guys and how we want to move forward, and what that looks like. I would lean on you guys to help develop or at least make recommendations on that. I'm trying to, what my goal here is on the call is try to make the connections with our TPS folks and Mr. Peterson from Oberlin and his team, and allow you guys to pick up the ball and run with it from there, however you see fit and however best meets your needs. So I'm not trying to force this down anyone's plate. To be honest with you, I'm trying to make sure that if the connections are there and the interests are there, everybody has the contacts and can take the ball and run with it if they would like.
I could see this being something that would be really powerful. I did some of the training back in 2017 or 18, and I was trying to use it in my classroom. Now that I'm a coach, I would see this as we would almost have to start with just an intro PD session for anyone that might potentially want to do this. I can think of maybe 2 people at Hawkins that would be really excited to try something like this. But without the initial just, hey, this is what the environmental dashboard is, this is what we do, I think it would be hard to get people on board. I think if we have just an initial, some kind of training, I don't know when or where that would be, but for the 4 STEM schools, plus if we had a high school on there, because not a lot of people really know what this is about. If the coaches get trained, I mean, that's definitely a start, but I think our staff needs to hear from the company exactly what this is about.
I'm in agreement with Cindy on that as well. I could see where this would really, where our STEM schools would be very interested in it, because it would fit for a, it would be an excellent PBL for each of our buildings if they so chose to do that. But we would want to make sure that our instructional coaches were involved and that the staff were trained in, you know, what the dashboard was specifically from the vendor.
So if I'm hearing Cindy, there is a level of interest from you and Hopkins. So I think maybe, and I'm trying not to go too far here because I'm trying to stay in my lane. But I hear what the next steps would be to get a presentation to John, from John and his team to your staff over there at Hopkins. And to your point, Kay, I think it'd probably be good if we would bring the other coaches in on that training as well, so they could see and learn about it. I believe some of them probably have some familiarity with it. Probably Andrea, I think, may be familiar with it as well. But I think it wouldn't hurt if you have a couple people over at Hopkins that are interested, Cindy, and we could pull in the coaches from the other schools to get more. I wouldn't say I think training is probably the wrong word. Probably introduction would probably be a better word to what it is and how it functions. I think training would come after the introduction, to be honest with you.
There may be a little bit of a chicken and egg here, Bob, in the sense that if you'll recall, what we initially contracted for was sort of proof of concept that we were able to collect and display data. We haven't actually built the dashboard out for you know, all the different components for the school. So it's I think we would need some sort of commitment before we do that. I think initially the idea we talked about was having students involved in some of the ground truthing for the sensors, involved in, you know, sort of you know, a group of students working to sort of verify function, and we'd be happy to sort of do that as a next step too. But it's I guess partly what I'm saying is it's hard for us to do a training session with you with what we've built so far, because we haven't really built it out. We could build it out, but we'd need a contract to do that, so that it's where it needs to be for the schools, if that makes sense.
Yep. No, I think, yeah, John, I think we're on the same page. I just want to make sure the interest was there before I committed anything financially from the district to help build that out. So, and it sounds to me like we have interest. So I think, you know, to your point, it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg concept, but I think what you went through today, I think, and I would lean on Cindy, a presentation similar to that maybe suffice for the staff at Hawkins and our coaches. Would you agree, Cindy, or no?
So I would look at it as maybe not for the whole staff. Like I said, I know there's maybe 2 people at Hawkins that would be interested. And quite frankly, we have a lot of other initiatives going on right now. So if we made this an all staff mandatory type of a thing, I don't think we'd have a really great turnout for that. But if there are, just a couple people at Hawkins, maybe there's a couple people at McKinley and Chase and Marshall. If we just bring together maybe, 10 teachers across the 4 STEM schools, plus the coaches, I like that you called it introduction, not training, because you're absolutely right. They're not committing to doing this project yet. Just to hear about what this is and then determine if we want to move forward. I think that would make sense.
Yeah, that's correct.
I think that's our next step, to be honest with you. I like that idea. And Melissa, I'm going to lean on you to pull all that together.
Yep. I think we have 1 interested high school, and then we'd bring the coaches and maybe a couple of interested staff members from each of our STEM schools in on a meeting. And we can, is Hawkins interested in hosting?
Yeah, that'd be fine, Melissa.
Okay.
Which is the interesting mystery high school, Melissa?
I believe that would be Bowsher High School. Elizabeth
Bowsher,
Buckles
okay.
Yeah, Elizabeth is embedded in Bowsher.
I put it in the comments. So yes,
okay. I'm not
working out of Bowsher. I'm working out of Bowsher High School this year, and the environmental science teacher and I have already planned on doing some things together. We have a person in the math department that's piloting a data analysis class for the state of Ohio.
Oh, neat.
So I could see a lot of potential if he's interested. I briefly mentioned that this thing might be coming, and he kind of perked up, though he doesn't know a single detail about it yet. So, but I just saying there's a little bit of potential there.
Yeah,
and I was wondering too, unless somebody has more comments along what schools are participating or not. You said that this was kind of going to be working like almost in a verification stage to make sure the tool is working the way we think it's working. Like, what does that look like?
Right. Okay. So to go back a little bit, and Russ unfortunately had to drop because he had another meeting, but just to go back to where we were, we are pretty confident in electricity for most schools. I have a spreadsheet, which I think I shared with you long ago, which I'll let me see if I can actually pop that up. Yeah, actually, I'll just share my screen for a second here. This is actually a workshop agenda from what's the date on this workshop? 7/30/18. And data available for TPS. Right. So this will give you a sense of, and if the data were there then, they're there now, basically. So you can see for Bowsher, we actually did not feel like we had good data on anything at that point. We had known problems with everything. So we'll need to do a little bit of check-in with Palmer to see what the status is of those, to see what we got going for Bowsher. But when we have blue lines for everything, we think we have good data. We never verify data, and by that I mean actually running a known load in the school. So this is something. It actually kind of needs to be done when there's no one, when there's next to no one there in the school, so you don't have a lot of background load. But what it means is sort of essentially plugging in a heater that's going to use a lot of energy into circuits, just to make sure we're getting what we think we're getting. But you can see for some of these schools, we think we have good data on everything, but we haven't quite ground truthed it, meaning we haven't, for water, it's like running water through a bucket at a known flow rate. You know, again, it has to be at a time when there's not water being used for a lot of other things. So ideally, this would be sort of like a weekend activity, an after school activity, something that takes place when there's almost no other activity in the school, and to verify it. But let me let me go ahead and drop this link in here, because it does have this is a link again to one of the TPS workshops we had, and there's a lot of information here which is still relevant. So oops, I didn't put it in there. There, if you guys want to verify that that's did you guys get that in your chat? Did you just get a link in your chat? And does that link take you here? Can you guys hear me?
No, I didn't get a link in the chat.
For some reason the chat doesn't seem to be letting me for some reason chat isn't working for me. I don't understand that. Well, at any rate, I can send it to you guys as an email. But bottom line is there is a little bit of verification we want to be sure to do. When Palmer installed the water meters, we know that a lot of those water meters weren't working quite right and probably need a little bit of work. So I just want to make sure our expectations are right in terms of accuracy of data. The gas and the electricity where it's working is good, but unfortunately, like I say, just looking at that spreadsheet, it looks like last we checked, Bowser wasn't necessarily delivering good data, but I'll check with Palmer on that. The metering is all installed. The question is whether it's working properly. And I will say, I think in general, and I don't see that there's any reason to think it would be different now, when Lucid was connected to the data system, we had a very good, high quality delivery of data. Again, we need to ground truth it to make sure it's accurate, but there was great consistency in data delivery. And so we anticipate getting back to that with this new system because we're accessing data in the same way. So yeah. So I guess the key questions are, assuming there's interest, and it sounds like we even have a plan here that we do sort of an introductory workshop, essentially for interested, I'll use the word early adopters. Sounds like what we want to do is corral sort of an early adopter group of people from schools and run a workshop. And I guess the question would be timing, I guess. Or we weren't calling it a workshop, were we? Whatever the right name was, an introduction.
Just from my standpoint, I think we're going to need just a little bit of time so that we can just make the other instructional coaches aware of this. And also remembering that today is the very first day of student attendance in TPS.
Yeah.
So this is not the time, at least today, to put this out to our teachers and say, does anybody think they might want to learn a little more about this? So I would say at least at a minimum, giving us a few weeks to get into the school year before we would even approach this topic with teachers would be my suggestion, unless Elizabeth or Julie or Cindy or Melissa, you have a different thought.
Yeah. Okay, I'm with you on that. Obviously, it's the first day of school. And we do have some instructional coaches meetings coming up that this would be an excellent opportunity for us to get together and talk about. So I could see that happening in the next couple of weeks.
The pre-discussion's happening in the next couple of weeks, Melissa.
Yes.
I would think if it would be And you know, if it's possible, we would be able to have access to the recording, even just to that part that you took us through your PowerPoint. We
Sure.
could at least get that out to the other coaches and they could just look at it, you know, on their own time. So they have at least some background knowledge before we'd even do an introduction on what it is, because I do agree. I think probably Andrea might have some background knowledge. I'm not sure about the other coaches. So to at least get them up to speed on what this is.
Yeah.
I know
So
that
back when we had the old system, I did come in when we had the STEM coaches just meeting before all the instructional coaches. We kind of showed them a little bit about what this is and what it could do. And some of the coaches did go to Oberlin for training. I know, I'm pretty sure I remember Andrea coming. I know Cindy was there.
And Gwen is another person who we would want
Oh, yeah.
to be a part of this.
Yeah, McLaughlin. Good point.
So you guys have a good sense of like who the good early adopters would be.
I believe we do, yes.
Well, it sounds like I'll certainly make the recording available. That's easy to do. You know, Elizabeth and Julie definitely have good background on the technology, although it's changed a little bit now. That's the thing. The interface is going to be a little bit different. But I guess the question is still, what's the sequence of steps that we go through to get to that meeting? Obviously that's totally your call.
Well, I think sharing the PowerPoint and the video helps. Like, that's first steps.
Okay. But in terms of like getting something scheduled, what are the getting something scheduled where we come in and do a presentation to this early adopter group? What's the sequence that needs to happen to get us there? Certainly we'll share the PowerPoint.
My suggestion would be if we go ahead and have access to the PowerPoint, give us at least, you know, a couple of weeks, give or take, and then maybe just a touch base back to see what kind of
Okay.
interest they feel that there might be in their buildings, who that might be. We probably can give you a better answer after that point on the when, because I think we're going to need to have a little bit of conversation, and they would probably do some internal conversations with staff members to get a sense of who might want more information. And then I think maybe at least give us a couple of weeks and then
We'd be looking after
let's do a
Labor Day.
follow-up connection.
Yeah, I think we'd be looking at least after Labor Day, correct? Maybe the second week of September.
Great. So maybe what we're talking about is just sort of a follow-up Zoom conversation with you guys having had the opportunity to pitch the idea, share the PowerPoint with some folks. We just do a little follow-up Zoom just to figure out next steps at that, to figure out what timing might make. So that sounds great to me if that's what we agree to. So you're saying this the second week of September, so like the 11th that week or something?
I think so.
I'm good
Does
with
that work?
whatever you guys want. You guys make the suggestion. I have a reasonably flexible early September, so.
Okay, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that let me look at my calendar. I mean, we definitely need a couple of weeks just to be able to get some conversations around with some people. So I think, yes, a touch base call then to decide whether or not we need to move forward and what that might look like is perfect.
What are good, we want to go ahead and get that on our calendar now, just so that we got it.
Sure.
What would be a good time for you guys?
This 11 o'clock works for me on the 11th.
Okay.
I can make that work.
Same for me.
I've got a meeting that I can move, so that can work for me. Is that good?
Yeah. And then I'll get together with instructional coaches with Elizabeth and Julie, along with building level instructional coaches, and we'll push that through.
All right. Sounds excellent. What else needs to be said, I guess? I can say on our end, I felt like we had built up a great head of steam way back when that came crashing down when the technology wasn't when the contract wasn't re-upped. So I know that there's interest, and actually some neat stuff was done. Some really cool stuff was done by some teachers in various different schools there. So I have a sense that there's interest there, but we're going to do things a little differently in this one, I guess, by building up from STEM schools. So I guess that's a new angle, and probably a good angle. Yeah.
John, I want to thank you very much. This is an interesting project, and I know all the members of individuals that are on this call are interested in moving forward with this. So we thank you for all of information and your time. And I look forward to seeing the video when it comes in and the PowerPoint when you share it with us, and we'll make sure we get it out to our instructional coaches.
Okay, great. So you want me to share that PowerPoint as well? That's fine.
Yes, please. That would be great.
Okay.
It's a visual of what you're trying to do, so we really appreciate that.
No, that sounds good. Perfect.
Are there any final questions for John or any other member on the call?
I will do a quick introduction, just so you know. Gaurav Bora joined the call. He's our chief software engineer. He was just interested in hearing what folks had to say. So
Awesome.
That's what Gaurav is doing here.
Hi, everyone.
We saw your emoji or whatever it's called. Yeah, your profile, your cartoon profile.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Thank you. You've given us
All
a
right,
lot of
thank
food
you
for
guys
thought.
so
We really
much.
appreciate it. All
Thank
right, have a great
you.
day.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.